Welcome back to The Real Story with Jeanne Ives. In the studio with me today is Farid Kossari. Farid Kossari grew up in Iran, and he's here to talk about the recent revolution that's going on right now. It's kind of what they call a yellow revolution. It's a new revolution. It's very kind of a quieter, although there's been a number of deaths associated with that. But I want to start with Farid basically telling us his story growing up in Iran, and then he came over to the U.S., and he is currently resides in the United States. So welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Jeanne. Thanks for having me. And what happened was I was born and raised in Iran, and it was before revolution. And, all of a sudden, as a kid, I saw this whole revolution happen, and we didn't have the answer to a lot of questions and a lot of things that was happening. Imagine you have everything. You have freedom. You have cartoon. You have, like toys and everything. And all of a sudden, everything changes. And
let me stop you there. I mean, I was just looking at images on Google, and anybody can do this. Google the images of Iranian women 1970s. I mean, just
it's just like every other Western country.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like it was. I remember even
there's no headscarves, there's no burqas, there's no head-to-toe coverings.
Even on the street I was born, I remember there was families from France, from Germany, from U.S. People were working, just like what you see in United Arab. That was what was happening. People were making a lot of money. Economy was so good, and unemployment was almost zero, and people were just happy and. They're just like very westernized with a lot of freedom, and all of a sudden, and I guess people, at the time, we definitely needed some reforms. We definitely didn't need any revolution. But I guess it was hijacked.
That's the revolution in 1979 that led to 440 days of Americans captured in Iran,
hostage taking and everything.
That's right, hostage taking, and then the imposition of Islamic law on everybody.
Everything.
So there's no secular environment whatsoever. There's no openness to other religions, right? It was complete shut down.
Baha'is, they got persecuted. Jewish people, they got persecuted. Christians, they got persecuted. And it was actually forced to, people that were, it was not absolutely nothing people were looking for. People were looking for democracy. And all of a sudden, it was hijacked by a bunch of, extreme Muslims. And even socially, culturally, historically, Iran is not really religious,
So this revolution takes off, and you're about 6 years old.
Yeah, 6, 7 years old, yeah.
So then you fast forward, you said you spent a couple years prior to coming to the United States in 1998. You were in Germany. So that means
France, actually.
France, I'm sorry. So so for a good portion of your upbringing, 15 years, really very formative years of your upbringing, you were under strict Islamic control.
Absolutely. I was in high school. I went to college under this. Imagine they separate all your classmates. Ladies have to sit on one side, boys have to sit. And schools, they got completely separated. Boys' school, girls' school. It was just totally, so you couldn't, you can't imagine. It was you can't even talk to girls anymore. Girls cannot talk to boys. You don't have any interaction. And it was totally a disaster, and plus corruption, and a lot of other other things, and especially for women, because it was completely imposed. They forced extreme Islamic laws.
Do you have sisters or?
No, I do not. But I have cousins and stuff, and imagine you as a woman, you don't even have rights. Honestly, you don't have rights. I mean, even you testify of two women is equal to one man, and you can't even travel without your husband's right. You can't even get divorced if you're not happy. It just it totally doesn't make.
How about your mother? Did her style of dress and the way that she presented herself in public, did that completely change?
They had to. I mean, they never wore the extreme covering, but they tried to. Because you can't just say, it's just not voluntarily, it's compulsory, and if you don't do it, they put you in jail. So even my mom, even though they were not religious at all, zero, and they never practiced anything, but they still, they were forced to cover their heads and kind of follow whatever they just tell them to do, and that was brutal. That was
so
horrible.
we're coming up on like basically 44 years of this type of oppression of women, and there was a little bit a few years ago, and I'm sorry I don't remember the exact date. There was a little bit of a uproar going on, a little bit of what they called the Green Revolution at that time.
It was like 13 years ago. I was a Green. And we had technically we had like, some sort of protest and rally and, uprising and stuff every year. But 97 and 8, which is actually, that's like 4 or 5 years ago, we had, and literally I can promise you, if COVID wouldn't happen, these system would have been gone by now. But COVID kind of delayed
that
everything.
A little bit. So so COVID, because the rest of the world was locked down, everybody else was locked down. You guys continued to be locked down, and you felt there was a little bit of a fervor happening at that time ahead of COVID, and it just all got delayed.
I got delayed. People they couldn't come out to protest anymore, and they just like they kind of like it was they got isolated. It was and they couldn't even provide any vaccine after that. People they had to also stay longer than other countries because of a lot of mismanagement and corruption. So I mean, like unfortunately, this situation caused a lot of delays in terms of movement that was happening in Iran, and it was like under all these ashes, and it came up right after the this brutal killing of Mahsa Amini that happened 5-6 months ago, and otherwise. People constantly were trying to change, to get rid of the system.
So they were trying to buck the system as much as they felt like they could get away with.
Another delay was
why is it what? I guess the government then just clamped down. They saw the protests happening, and then the government clamped down, and everybody goes back to their corners until there's another sort of leader that emerges to say, let's go back to the streets to protest. I mean, is this just the ebb and flow of what's been going on?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it all depends on the pressure from the government side, and it all depends on how much leverage and how much money they have. Like during Obama administration, they had a lot of leverage because they started dealing with this corrupted government, and they just kind of injected a lot of money into the system. And they could just say, and they a little bit they changed the economy for people, even though that was a bare minimum. But that was not people they really deserve. Imagine Iran is sitting on 11% of natural resources of the world.
Yes.
So in a worse situation, you have to be one of the best 10 countries. Well, we're not even one of the 100 countries. That means a lot of corruption. So they gave a little bit of freedom, a little bit of food, even though that was a minimum. And that was also another delay we had during Obama administration, that they started talking to this government and trying to negotiate the JCPOA, which was a disaster. And it's still a disaster. And people, they don't want no deal because you're negotiating with a terrorist. A cancer in the region.
So the Iranian people do not want the JCPOA.
Absolutely. I mean, some people, they want it. They thought that this system is reformable, which was a fantasy.
Let's go back a little bit more. So I'm getting, I think we look at this and say this is a cultural issue. This is a cultural revolution. And certainly there's that aspect to it. But you're now saying to us that it's more than that. It is about economics as well. It is about scarcity of goods and I imagine
it's a combination of a lot of things. The economy, even Soviet Union, the collapse because of economy.
Yes.
And a lot of times people, they don't have the power and leverage to fight. And economy is the only thing people, they say, okay, we have to do something. Otherwise, we don't have food to eat.
All right. The generation, though, that your parents' generation, where they were, essentially in a land of plenty and openness and freedom, they don't forget that.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
Is the current Iranian, terrorist organization, are they just hoping that generation dies out and they can continue this charade?
They try, that's trying to brainwash the new kids. They change all the material in schools, and they try to kind of destroy and brainwash people.
Oh, so the schools are brainwashing the kids.
Absolutely, that's how it works, and that's how you start Even if you want to be successful,
Yep.
you have to start from schools. If
Well,
you
they know
wanna-
that. They know that, and they know
Absolutely,
that.
everybody.
They know that.
Any
and
dictator
they know that in the
knows
U.S. too.
Oh, absolutely, anywhere.
Absolutely, they know that.
Any person wants to force like any like agenda to other people. You have to start from school, so you have a generation that you can control. So that's what they did. Even communist system, they did that. They did that.
But you know, everything that's happening there is not natural. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel natural that somebody can tell me I have to cover my
Absolutely not.
my head at the age of 10. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, now my hair's a threat. I mean, that's not a natural
They've
thing.
been forcing and fighting
this is
and
not gonna
struggling to take it off. People actually, you know, they're not like other like countries, like neighboring countries, like Arab countries, for example. Some of them they volunteer that, but in Iran it's totally different situation. Even people sometimes they cannot distinguish the difference, but it's totally people they hate that. I can tell you, like 90% of people they hate that.
Is repressive in Iran as it is in China to the point where the government is controlling what its citizens see on the internet, TV, and all of that? Is that all state-controlled media,
controlling,
censorship of
filtering,
the internet, all of that?
Absolutely, they're doing that, and they're actually learning from them. From Russians and like Chinese, because those are the people they want this situation because they're stealing the natural resources in the region, especially in Iran. They're getting cheap oil from Iran. And also they have control because Iran created kind of like an empire, not Iran, the Islamic Republic. They created kind of like an empire of terrorism, all from Lebanon, Palestine, all the way to like, you know, Yemen. Imagine all these countries. And they're feeding them Hezbollah in Lebanon. And
well, and you know, I remember growing up. I was in high school when it really broke out. The Iran-Iraq War was a big deal. I think that was an 8-year war between the two countries.
Correct.
It was devastating. Yeah. Chemical weapons were used.
Absolutely.
You know, it was very regional. However, people covered it from across the world. The fallout from that. I mean, Iraq also became a totalitarian government as well. Iran became a totalitarian government. Iraq has now had this breakage with all of that because of the U.S. invasion in 2003, which precipitated a new government and the fall of Saddam Hussein. So that has absolutely changed the trajectory of that country forever.
That's true, yeah.
To what degree, since you guys share a massive border, is there any, understanding between the two about what's going on in Iran? Is there any support coming out of Iraq for what's going on in Iran? Or is there still such a separation between the two countries?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, historically they're very close because Iraq was a part of the whole Persian Empire.
Yes,
so you look at it,
yes.
it was coming from almost India all the way going to Spain. So, but like that region was like a part of like, I mean, the people are very close, but they tried they're not that separated, but the Islamic Republic is trying to control them. They're feeding a lot of smaller groups in Iraq and Syria and a lot of other countries. So they're trying to take control. And they're doing it, but they've been very successful because nobody was really dealing with them. And even ISIS was a byproduct of that.
That was definitely the case during the Iraq war with the U.S. That was definitely the case, no doubt, when Al-Qaeda was, terrorizing many of them. But I have, very fortunate that we have some really good Iraqi friends. We just had them over for dinner in December. And they were discussing Iraq and I mean, they said the country is 100% changed now, like 100% changed. That it's very peaceful there. The woman who's a good friend of mine, she showed me pictures of Christians going to mass for Christmas Eve mass.
Right.
He said, look, if you've got a car that's older than 2018, you're poor. He said there's so much oil wealth going to the 30 million people in Iraq that it's a land of plenty. It's a very open society. It's a secular society. It's any denomination of worship is allowed there. And in fact, it's interesting because the man, our friend, our Iraqi man, he is Sunni and his wife is a Shia. And so. And they basically escaped, and I want to get him on tape to tell his story too. But they helped an American soldier, pulled him into their compound, gave him aid, got him back to his unit, saved his life, and then he started to work with the Americans to ferret out Al Qaeda, and they were after him. They had a number on his head. They wanted to murder him, so they left behind everything: their 2 BMWs, their compound. They fled with their kids, and lo and behold, he ends up, after 10 years in Oman, then he ends up in the United States, and my husband was the first one to hire him when he came to the United States. So that's how we got to know them. But they say that Iraq is just a great place to be. You go there, it's completely peaceful.
Well, it is now, yeah. And
can we have that hope for Iran?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the solution is definitely not war. We definitely can have it, and it can easily happen. I can tell you, just like what's happening now, and no deal with Iran, it's going to happen because people, they're doing it. I mean, even during Saddam Hussein, I don't know if the invasion was the solution, but
I agree with that.
And because it's never, I mean, the war could be like the last resort for anything, but same thing with Iran. I mean, there has to be on the table, but the thing is, nobody wants it. But this system is collapsing right now. You don't want to touch it because it is happening. The momentum is toward collapsing.
Farid, let's talk about that because that is really what we're going to talk about, a rally that you guys are going to have this Saturday. But let's talk about that because there are courageous people stepping up to ensure that collapse of the Iranian government happens and freedom comes to everybody. And this, I'm reading from a New York Post article about what went on. So it was Mahsa Amini, 22. She died in state custody September 16 after being arrested by the feared morality police for letting her hair peek out from under her headscarf. Okay, that's what happened. But then in addition to that, so there was a big uprising over her death for that reason.
Yeah.
But then disturbing video also emerged of an Iranian girl being beaten by authorities after she removed her hijab amid violent demonstrations that gripped the country since Amini died. And then it says here that, there's at least 41 additional deaths since Amini died. So these protests in the street keep going on.
It's more than that, much more than that. It's like hundreds.
Tell us more.
Yeah, people are getting, because there is no absolutely not right number. Everything's fake. I mean, numbers are over hundreds. People get killed and tortured or already dead, and nobody talks about it. And they cannot even report their death. They cannot even have funeral. So how can you say like this many people they died when you cannot even say my family, like we're mourning over like our...
So 41, that's a fictitious number.
That's definitely. And tens of thousands they have in jail and hundreds of people get killed. And I mean...
And the Iranian people are still going to the streets to protest.
People are going to the street, but the crackdown is huge, massive. They're mercenaries. There's no police right now. I mean, they call them morality police and police like... there's absolutely nothing like that. These people are going on the street, getting paid by the system and nobody knows where they're coming from. Some of them actually hired by this terrorist group, and they're just kind of killing people. And it's a bad situation. Imagine you're just dealing with a bunch of people, they shoot you, and a lot of people are now blind. Hundreds of people are blind. And beautiful girls, handsome guys, and look at the faces, you can see them on Google. And they literally shoot people in the faces. And those are not police. Police doesn't do that. I mean, they have people, and they go and they just kill people. And if you resist, they put you in a car and they put you in jail. And a couple of weeks later, you turn up dead. So that's what's happening right now. And people, they come to the street, they go back, they go to the street. So the momentum is toward removing their past Islamic revolution. They absolutely don't want any reform. They will not participate in any election or anything from now. So
they don't want to lose power like Saddam did. They want to stay in power.
Yeah, they want to have a transition because we have a position. If there is a nice, peaceful transition, which is happening, there's going to be a lot of, people inside even the regime soon. They're going to come to the people's side. And
so you think that there is going to be a peaceful transition? That's what you just said, no?
That's what...
Nothing of what you described is peaceful.
People, they want that,
right.
But the thing is, they have to, at the end, they might have to get armed and fight. Because, freedom doesn't come for free. You know that freedom, you have to pay the price. Anywhere you have to fight. So that's what people, they want, but they don't want war. That's what I meant. So they want...
Okay.
The peace, that means like you want to just talk, and then like they might have to fight with the system at the end, which is happening right now. They get weapon and start fighting, but they just don't want any interference from the outside countries at this stage, except helping and don't dealing with them, kicking out their their ambassadors and everything, and just start like telling that we're not going to deal with this system, with this government, and see what happens. And that's going to happen. Revolution is going on, and this system will collapse.
Well, I was reading from the Chicago Policy Review, and in that, Nagin Moyor, an Iranian immigrant, do you know her? I don't know. She's from Chicago. She wrote about this entire situation that's going on, that's great. I mean, there's information out there, but you want to take it to the next step. Tell us what's going to be happening Saturday in Chicago,
so
right on Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, so this is like a very important, dates for the revolution.
So there's a reason that February 11th was
February
chosen.
11th.
Well, because February 11th, 79 is when the revolution happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's when they celebrate their victory.
Yes.
That means like we kicked the Shah out, and now this and that's why they just want to say like there is absolutely no victory, there is absolutely no celebration, and now we want to protest. And everybody was going out on the states, and we are trying to bring all these people from the Midwest to Chicago. So to bring as many people as possible to participate, because we have also one in LA, which was going to be the biggest one.
Okay.
We have, Persians. There's a huge community of Persian in LA, in California, especially LA. And they call it actually Tehrangeles, and because of the population. And then also one is in D.C., and then we're trying to bring people from Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, and Minnesota to Chicago.
I think you're expecting at least 1,500 people.
1,500 is the minimum we're expecting. Well, 1,500 to 2,500, that's what we're expecting. And awareness is the goal right now. The message is trying to send a message to politicians that please do not negotiate with this regime. This regime is not definitely normal. Nobody wants this regime. The situation in Iran is bad, even though they're trying to picture it as a normal situation, but this is not what's happening. This government is not normal. This government is definitely not the elected by the people. It's definitely not the Islamic. It's definitely not Republic.
Right.
Let just this thing move forward.
So we're Life Freedom Movement.
Yeah.
The Women Life
It's
Freedom
the most
movement.
progressive, revolution and, protest, because it started by women in Iran, and they just want social justice, equality, and actually we are trying to bring, and as a matter of fact, they are coming. Ukrainians are participating.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
And Syrians are coming too, and because also they are the victim of this Islamic Republic system right now. Because Syria turned into this because of Islamic Republic, and Assad is in power because of Russians and Islamic Republic. And Ukraine's situation is because of Russians and also Islamic Republic.
Sure.
So, and the war, the politician
right,
cannot...
and one is feeding the other one with munitions. Iranians are giving Russian munitions. Russians have given the Syrians munitions, all to oppress their own people.
Absolutely true. That's what's happening, and we want to tell the politicians and the governments around the world that this is what's going on. This government is killing innocent people, and Syrians, Ukrainian, and they just want to be.
Now, the other thing that you have going on is February 23rd at the Waldorf Astoria, and I just bought my ticket to this. I'm looking forward to it. It is the Intrigue Yellow Foundation fashion presentation. Chicago gives Shig Go. It's February 23rd, 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. They can go to Yellow Foundation. Yeah,
Yellow Foundation, and it's going to be also very fascinating. With a lot of messages and a lot of talented, brilliant people. It's also supporting women. There's all even great. Us, which is called a House of Women's Empowerment, and also Yellow Intrigue is the same thing. They're trying to say. There is a lot of talent, but because of the system, because of the situation, women, they never got that opportunity to grow. And we need to bring awareness and helping women around the world, and especially in the region, that they're just like, the problem is the system right now that needs to be fixed. And that's a message also there. And also they're bringing, like, they
So
have
how
guests.
can people help you?
People
Listening to my podcast, how can they help you?
They
I mean,
can,
I
like,
bought a ticket to this. That's going to go
yeah,
to
that's
a
the
good
best thing right now. We just definitely need, like, if they can financially help and awareness, like word of mouth.
Awareness.
Tell people to participate if they can, which is good. And if they cannot, that maybe they can donate to all these funds.
How can we let the women in Iran know that we're behind them? We're praying for them. We care about them. I mean, what can we do?
All these protests, for example, these, like,
Will they be able to see this? Will they get a
see this,
sense?
and they need
Will
participation.
you be able to feed it back to them?
Absolutely. All these medias are coming,
Okay.
like all these Persian medias, like BBC is coming, Voice of America is coming, Radio Iran Internet. And they want to see also, like, Americans and, like, non-Persians also supporting. They want to see, like, this, that they want this change. They're not trying to help this regime, because there's a lot of brainwashing going on in regime that, U.S. is behind everything, even though U.S. has been the best economy partner of, Iranian history and Germans. But they're picturing it differently because it's not what's happening. They never... But that's what brainwashing people. But you need to tell them, no, that's not what Americans they want. Persians, they love Americans. I can tell you that much. There's no problem.
Yeah.
Even they don't have any problem with Jewish people. Historically, we've been living together for thousands of years. So, but that's something else. People, they want to see. They say, okay, is this what's really going on? Is this, like, we really want to bring us, like, what we want? Help us, like talk to the politicians. That's what they want. Talk to the representatives, talk to senators, like, whoever has office that, like, help, like, these people, they want freedom. And once it happens, there's a lot of potential for U.S. There's a lot of potential for, like, Western countries.
Yep.
That's and there's a lot we can do. I mean, like,
sure. I think that we'd be willing to purchase some Iranian oil as long as it wasn't from a terrorist organization, right?
That's one of the things they can buy, and a lot of
We'd
also...
prefer you to be an ally than an aggressor against us and supplying,
And the Iranian infrastructure is also, imagine, has nothing happened in the past 44 years because of the system. There's a lot of things, in, like, different industries that there can be a lot of collaboration and working and cooperation with U.S. and Germany, England, like France, that hasn't happened
So
yet.
will this more recent movement, will it continue, or will it?
It will
fizzle
continue.
out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's actually what pisses me off. That because when I see they're talking about, like, Revolutionary Guard, they want to put them in the list of terrorists, which needs to happen. That's one of the things that you asked me, that what we can do this. Put this Revolutionary Guard. It's not the Iranian army. This is a Revolutionary Guard created by this dictator to protect dictatorship. Put them in the list, and once you put this in the list, that's people they want, and that's what's happening, and it's a help. But
so that'd be pressuring our Congress.
It's gonna,
do
yeah,
that.
and but it will happen. It's not gonna stop. I can tell you right now. This revolution, some elements might delay this revolution, but at the end it will happen because of many reasons. I mean, people is one thing, economies and that thing, and there's just, like, imagine this country is completely isolated with the rest of the world right now. Yeah. And the only allies they have, even China, is kind of, like, adjusting their, like, their stance, toward Iran. Only Russians, and that the only reason they're helping them, because also they need them right now. I mean,
I could talk to you forever. Our podcast is going a little long right now, but I am curious about one thing. What's Turkey's response to the entire, revolution going on right now, or the attempt to?
Turkey's?
Yes.
I mean, Turkey, the country?
Turkey, the country.
What is their response?
Yes. How are they being supportive of the protesters, or are they staying on the sidelines?
They're staying on the sidelines, I would assume. Yeah, because they're also talking
because that's another country, quite frankly, from the 80s to now that has completely become a little bit more totalitarian.
It is, and also they're kind of going to move towards, like, what happened to Iran back in 70s.
Yes, they are. That's why I'm curious.
We went through a renaissance. They've never been through a renaissance. When you go to Turkey, I don't know if you've ever been.
I've been to Turkey.
You hear all these mosques loud and everything, people with scarves. There's still a little bit.
But that wasn't the way it was when I went to Turkey. in
like in Istanbul in
1988.
19. Well,
Yeah.
now there's like a lot
It's
of
different.
like, like you see a lot of religious, features that are happening that somebody's doing that because it was supposed to be a completely secular system that during the Ataturk and the country was going through completely
Right.
separation of the state from the politics. But that thing is changing because of this. Like Erdogan is what's happening. He has a lot of religious mentality.
So I bring up Turkey because I think it's a little bit of a warning order and a warning shot. It doesn't mean that we're done fighting totalitarianism around the world. We're not.
We're not.
Leadership matters, and this can change on a dime, or it can take 10 years. But if you put these other people in power, they will take away your freedoms.
That's why U.S. needs to be engaged, and it's not interference. It's a country with a good system. It's the best system in the world, but we don't need a weak government. We need a powerful government to deal with these. Doesn't matter if it's North Korea. It doesn't matter if it's Venezuela. If it's happening, whatever I know the previous administration did with the China was right. Even though whatever happened after that, nobody know, and nobody ever know that, why the Chinese are. But that's what we need. We need engagement, involvement with the whole world and making sure, because a lot of Americans they were born and raised here, they don't know that what's happening around the world. They think no, absolutely they don't.
No, they don't. When I was 16, I went through Checkpoint Charlie when it was West Germany and East Germany. Kids growing up today,
they don't know that.
No idea about that. And cannot
And media is not
experience
talking about it. That's another problem.
right.
Look at the media. It's not talking. People, whatever they're doing, they're not talking about the achievements outside the country.
That's right.
And the people kind of like the new generation are only focus on what's happening socially in the U.S. And they're just focusing on a bunch of like items like racism, sexism, LGBTQ. But there's a lot of issues outside. And if you really care about human rights and humans, you can go and see it's not like what you see here compared to what's happening around the world is nothing. And if you really care, you need to get engaged and you need to talk about it. Because if you like human rights, you go and see like, Africa. If you want to see women's rights, go and see like Middle East, for example, see what happens. But seems like you don't care. It's just like media is just charging you and whatever they want to feed you, you'll do that. But the government of U.S. needs to get engaged, and I'm telling you, and a lot of, as you said, and if you don't do that, China will take over.
Yep.
And they'll surpass, and which is happening. That's also another scary momentum that I see that surpass our economy, and there will be another superpower. Which
if people are so naive as to think there can't be another axis of evil that occurs between a few governments. They're wrong. They're wrong. It's always about power and money.
The axis of
you
evil.
always have got to protect your freedom.
Absolutely. And the axis of evil is happening because of the weakness in the government of the United States. And every time they created the axis of evil because of the weakness in our government. And it happened every single time. Absolutely. ISIS happened, and even this revolution in Iran happened because of the weakness during Carter administration.
Oh, you look.
And everything else after that.
The invasion of Ukraine by Russia happened because they saw the weakness of Joe Biden.
Absolutely. Why didn't it happen in the previous? How come this,
100%.
The Crimea happened during Obama administration and nothing happened during Trump administration, and all of a sudden this happened during Biden? So they felt the weakness. And every time somebody feels their weakness and they try to take advantage of it. It's a normal human nature. So if you see it, why not? And this is a good time to attack. This is a good time to do that. But when they're scared of the administration, they stop. Even though people in U.S., Americans, even media is not talking about it. The young generation, they see a different side of the story. They don't see, okay, somebody's doing it. Maybe you don't like, but the politics is not a love story. But a lot of kids I see in U.S., they think politics is a love story. This is a good guy. This is a man of the family.
Look, it's another commentary on our education system, because I don't care where you go, if it's Spain or Germany, France, or you talk to Iraqi kids or Iranian kids who are over here, or Russian kids who are, part of, have come over here, Polish children. They are far more informed as first generation than the American kids
100%.
on world
and
politics
this problem
and
is the
everything
school
else.
system here because there's all a
Absolutely.
lot of filtering, censorship.
Oh my gosh, you are
and
speaking
everything.
my language.
I'm telling you, everything's
It's
filtering.
true.
You can't even express yourself anymore. The moment I start talking, they just say I have to filter myself. I can't even talk anymore.
Well, this is a no filter zone, so you're good here. Hey, listen, we've got to stop. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. We're going to get this podcast out ahead of your rally. It's February 11th. It's noon to 3. It's on Congress and Michigan Avenue. Please come out and support the Yellow Revolution that's going on, and show your support for the Iranian women specifically that are getting butchered and murdered in the streets by terrorists. So thank you so much. And then
Thank
also
you.
get your ticket to this absolute cool fashion show. I'm really excited about this one. I think it'll be a lot of fun. February 23rd at the Waldorf Astoria. You can go to the Intrigue Yellow Foundation. You can find that. You can Google that and buy a ticket and support. Even if you can't go, buy a ticket and support of their efforts. So I appreciate it. Farid, I'm so happy to have met you.
Jeanne, really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really we can talk forever, I guess.
Yeah, we will.
There's a lot of topics we can talk about, but yeah, it's good.
You hit on a lot of interesting points. So, all right, thank you so much. That concludes The Real Story with Jeanne Ives.